The mission was a success, but the aftermath held a secret far more explosive than any battlefield victory. As the Navy SEAL team stood at attention, their commander prepared to deliver the intelligence officer who had been their lifeline, the anonymous voice in their ears who had guided them through hell. They expected a hardened CIA spook. When the commander uttered a single sentence, "Her identity is classified," the most decorated man in the room, Master Chief Leo Cruz, let out a sharp, involuntary laugh of disbelief. It was a breach of protocol that could end a career. But Leo wasn't laughing at the order. He was laughing because, against all odds and every rule of war and life, he recognized the woman being hidden in plain sight. He knew her name. He knew her scent. He had held her in a life he was told was forever gone. And in that fractured second, his entire world, past, present, and future, was rewritten. The polished floor of the secure briefing room at Dam Neck Annex reflected the sterile overhead lights, making the space feel more like an operating theater than a place for homecomings. The air smelled of lemon disinfectant and stale coffee. 6 men of SEAL Team 5, still carrying the kinetic energy of a high-stakes deployment, stood rigidly at parade rest. Dust from a foreign desert still seemed to cling to their fatigues. Before them, Commander Jameson, a man with a face like a weathered map, stood beside a large digital screen, now dark. The operation was a clean extraction. Jameson's voice cut the silence, crisp and official. High-value individual recovered. Enemy communications node destroyed. Casualties, 0. The success of this op, particularly the evasive routing through the Takar Gorge under unexpected aerial surveillance, is credited in no small part to the real-time intelligence provided by the embedded liaison from the Defense Intelligence Agency. A low murmur of acknowledgement, a subtle shift in stance from the team. They'd been in the dark, literally and figuratively, for 72 hours, their only tether a calm, unflappable female voice in their earpieces, codenamed Sparrow. She had navigated them, warned them, and, on one heart-stopping occasion, talked a young operator through a field dressing when their medic was pinned down. She was their guardian ghost. Sparrow's analysis prevented a catastrophic ambush. Jameson continued, his eyes scanning the men. As such, she is being forwarded for a commendation. However, he paused, the word landing with weight. Due to the sensitive nature of her ongoing work and the clandestine networks she operates within, her identity remains protected. She's a shadow. You will not seek her out. You will not discuss her beyond operational parameters. Her identity is classified. That is a direct order. The rule was standard, understandable. Yet, in the silence that followed the decree, a sound erupted. A short, sharp, almost derisive laugh. It was a single "ha," a burst of disbelief that echoed in the quiet room. Every head, including Commander Jameson's, snapped toward the source. Master Chief Leo Cruz, a man built like a fortress with a chest full of medals that spoke of a dozen such silent wars, stood with his jaw tight, eyes wide, locked not on Jameson, but on a side door that had just opened. A woman walked in. She was dressed in the unremarkable uniform of a civilian analyst. Navy slacks, a cream-colored blouse, her dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She carried a tablet, her posture professional, her eyes downcast as she moved to stand slightly behind Jameson. She was the picture of anonymous bureaucracy. But Leo knew. The laugh hadn't been about the order. It was the staggering, impossible collision of realities. The curve of her cheekbone, the specific way her thumb brushed against the edge of the tablet, the faint, almost invisible scar on her left temple. A childhood scar from a bicycle accident. This was not some anonymous Sparrow. This was Maya, his Maya, the woman he had loved and lost, the woman whose supposed death in a terrorist-linked bombing in Berlin 5 years ago had carved a hollow in him he'd filled with nothing but missions and regret. His laugh was the sound of a universe breaking its own rules. Jameson's face darkened. Master Chief Cruz, you have something to add? Leo forced his expression into a granite mask, the SEAL discipline overriding the seismic shock. No, sir. Apologies, sir. A cough. It was a cough. Jameson held his gaze for a long, dangerous second, then gave a minute, disapproving shake of his head before continuing. The woman, Maya, had finally looked up, her eyes sweeping over the team with the detached professionalism of a stranger. Her gaze passed over Leo without a flicker of recognition. It was perfect. It was horrifying. The briefing ended. The team filed out, the usual post-op relief muted by the odd tension. Leo moved like an automaton. In the corridor, he saw her walking ahead, alone, turning a corner toward the DI wing. Without thinking, his feet followed. He caught up just as she was swiping a keycard at a secure door. Maya. The name left his lips, a whispered breath. She froze. For a fraction of a second, her shoulders tensed. Then she turned, her eyes meeting his. They were the same rich, dark brown, but they held a cool, distant light he didn't know. Master Chief, can I help you? The formal address was a bucket of ice water. It's Leo, he said, his voice low, urgent. Maya, it's me. I think you're mistaken, she said evenly, her hand still on the keycard reader. You have me confused with someone else. Now, if you'll excuse me. She pushed the door open. You have a scar on your left temple from my old Schwinn bike. You hated my coffee. You always stole my hoodies. You used to hum Puccini when you were nervous. The words tumbled out, a desperate incantation. For the first time, the perfect mask slipped. A tremor in her hand. A flash of raw, unguarded pain in her eyes, so profound it stole his breath. It was there and gone, replaced by steel. That person, she said, her voice barely audible, is dead. Sir, for your safety and mine, leave her buried. She disappeared through the door, and it clicked shut with a final sound more deafening than any gunshot. Leo's world became a blurred montage of routine and internal chaos. He went through the motions of debriefings, gear checks, and mandatory psych evaluations, his mind a prisoner of that single moment in the hallway. The ghost of her pain-filled eyes haunted him. How could she be alive? The Berlin bombing had been confirmed. There were remains, identified through dental records her aunt had provided. He had grieved at a graveside with a closed casket. He started digging, using skills honed for far different targets. He accessed nothing classified, only open-source archives and his own memories. He revisited the news reports of the Berlin cafe bombing. Blurry photos, a list of the dead. Her name, Maya Rosen. He recalled the days after, the numb shock, the quiet, efficient man from the State Department who had handed him the official notification and a sealed personal effect, a necklace he'd given her, found at the site. He remembered her aunt, a distant, stern woman he'd only met once at a funeral years prior, who had confirmed the identification. Now the inconsistencies, once blurred by grief, sharpened. Why had the aunt been so involved? Maya's parents were gone. She'd been vague about other family. The State Department official had been unusually hurried. The necklace, was it really proof or a piece of stage scene? His obsession didn't go unnoticed. Commander Jameson called him in. The office was austere. Cruz, you're distracted. You breached protocol by approaching the DI liaison. I need my Master Chief present, not chasing phantoms. She's not a phantom, sir, Leo said, choosing his words with care. With respect, I have reason to believe the liaison and a civilian casualty from a past incident are the same person. Jameson leaned back, his expression unreadable. Belief isn't intelligence, Master Chief. Sparrow is a vital asset in a very dangerous game. A game where questions get people killed. You're to stand down. That is not a suggestion. Your next deployment is in 96 hours. Focus on that. The message was clear. Back off or be sidelined. But the seed of truth was planted. Jameson hadn't outright denied it. He'd warned him off. That night, Leo drove to a secluded overlook near the base, a place he went to think. He was staring at the lights of the city when a car pulled up beside him. Not a military vehicle, a dark sedan. The passenger window slid down. It was her. Get in, Maya said, her face pale in the dashboard lights. He slid into the passenger seat. The car smelled of her, jasmine and vanilla, a scent from a past life that hit him like a physical blow. For a long moment, they sat in silence. "You have to stop," she finally said, her eyes on the windshield. "Every query you run, every old record you pull, it sends a ripple. You're shining a light on a grave that's supposed to stay closed. Why, Maya? Why did you let me think you were dead?" The pain in his voice was raw. She turned to him then, and the professional wall was gone. In its place was a profound exhaustion and fear. "Because I am dead. Maya Rosen died in that bombing. The woman you see is a construct, a tool. 5 years ago, I wasn't just a linguistics student in Berlin. I was helping, translating for an NGO that was, unknowingly, a front for an intelligence pipeline. I saw something I shouldn't have. A name. A high-ranking U.S. official compromising asset safety for profit. Before I could figure out what to do, they found out. The bombing was a cover. My aunt was coerced into identifying the body. The State Department man was one of them." "Who is them?" Leo asked, his blood turning cold. "A network. Call it cabal. Deeply embedded in intelligence, private military, and government oversight. They broker secrets. They orchestrate chaos. They sell outcomes. And they're protected. The man you saw, the one who gave you my necklace, he works for a private contractor called Janus Holdings. They're cleaners. They make problems disappear." She took a shaky breath. "I was given a choice. Disappear into the machine and work for them, or they'd make my death and the deaths of anyone close to me, including you, a reality. I chose to vanish, to become Sparrow, to stay alive in the hope I could find a way to burn it all down from the inside. The scale of it was monstrous. So the op, Takar Gorge, was a test. For me, and for you. They wanted to see if proximity would trigger a reaction. Your laugh in the briefing room. It was the one variable they didn't fully account for. They knew our history. They've always known. They think it makes me more controllable." She looked at him, her eyes pleading. "Leo, you're the one living tether to who I was. If you keep pulling on it, they will sever it. Permanently. For your own sake, you have to mourn me." Again, he reached out, his calloused hand covering hers on the gear shift. "Not a chance in hell. I lost you once. I'm not signing the order for it to happen again." A tear escaped, tracing a path down her cheek. "Then you'll die. I've been living on borrowed time since they put your name on that memorial," he said, his voice firm. "Tell me what you need." She saw the resolve, the unchangeable fact of him, and a part of her wall crumbled. "I'm building a case. A ledger. But it's digital, fragmented, hidden across air-gapped systems. I need physical proof. A hard drive. It's in a secure facility in D.C., registered to Janus. It's a fortress." A slow, determined smile touched Leo's lips. It was the smile he wore before a halo jump in a hostile territory. "I don't need to storm a fortress. I just need to get someone inside. You tell me where it is and how it's kept. We'll get your proof." She hesitated, the analyst warring with the woman who loved him. "There's a gala. In 4 days. A fundraiser for Veterans Affairs. Janus is a sponsor. The director of their internal security, the man who runs their cleaners, will be there. His name is Alistair Cray. He carries a key card that provides secondary access to the vault room where the drive is kept. It's not the master key, but it's a piece we can use." 4 days, Leo repeated. The same as his deployment clock. "I'll be there." "You can't go as Leo Cruz," she said urgently. "You'll be made immediately." "I won't be," he said, a plan already forming. "I'll be a ghost, just like you." The Veterans Gala at the Mayflower Hotel was a sea of dress uniforms, dark suits, and gowns, a glittering facade of patriotism and philanthropy. Among the crowd moved a man who was not Master Chief Leo Cruz. He wore the impeccably tailored uniform of a lieutenant colonel from the Air Force Base Command, a branch obscure enough to discourage detailed conversation. His hair was temporarily a shade lighter, graying at the temples, his posture subtly altered by lifts in his shoes. A pair of non-prescription glasses completed the disguise. He moved with a different kind of authority, less predatory, more bureaucratic. He was, for all intents and purposes, a ghost. Across the room, Maya, dressed in an elegant but understated black dress, circulated with a glass of champagne, her eyes constantly scanning. She was there as a DIA aide to a senior official, her cover intact. Their eyes met once, a fleeting, electric moment of recognition before sliding away. Leo's target, Alistair Cray, held court near the bar. He was a man in his 50s, with the polished, benign look of a successful banker, but his eyes were camera lenses, cold and absorbing everything. Leo observed him, noting the unconscious habit of patting his left breast pocket every few minutes. The key card. The plan was delicate. Maya had provided the layout of the hotel's private floors and the schedule. Cray was known to take a solo phone call on the terrace at 9:30 p.m. It was a small window. Leo mingled, telling a boring, rehearsed story about satellite telemetry to a politely captive audience, all while tracking Cray's movements. At 9:28, Cray excused himself and walked toward the veranda doors. Leo gave it a 30-second count, then followed, feigning a need for air. The terrace was large, dotted with potted plants and heaters against the autumn chill. Cray stood at the far railing, phone to his ear, his back to the door. Leo didn't go for the pocket. It was too obvious, too risky. Instead, he moved to a nearby table, pretending to check his own phone. From his pocket, he palmed a small, custom-built device, a cloner. It needed to be within inches of the keycard's chip for 3 seconds. He needed a distraction. He caught Maya's eye through the glass door. She gave a slight nod. A moment later, a server carrying a full tray of champagne flutes accidentally stumbled near the terrace entrance, glass shattering with a spectacular crash. Every head, including Cray's, turned toward the noise. In that 2-second window, Leo closed the distance, bumping lightly against Cray as if jostled by the commotion. "Pardon me, terribly clumsy," he muttered in a clipped accent, his hand brushing Cray's jacket. The device in his palm whirred silently. He felt the subtle vibration indicating capture. Cray turned, annoyance flashing across his face. He patted his breast pocket instinctively. The key card was still there. He gave Leo a dismissive once-over. "No harm done, Colonel," he said, his voice smooth, before turning back to his call, his guard momentarily down but intact. Leo offered a polite, apologetic smile and retreated inside, his heart hammering against his ribs. In the men's room, he locked himself in a stall and checked the device. A green light blinked. The digital signature of the key card was cloned. Phase 1 was complete. But as he exited the bathroom, he saw Maya across the lobby, her face carefully neutral. She gave a tiny, almost imperceptible shake of her head. A warning. He followed her slight glance and saw a man leaning against a pillar, watching the crowd. He was nondescript, but his eyes were not. They were the same eyes as the State Department official from 5 years ago. A cleaner. They were made. The plan had to accelerate. The Janus facility was a modern office building in Rosslyn, posing as a data security firm. With the clone keycard access, they could bypass the secondary gate, but the main vault required a biometric scan, a palm print. Cray's palm print. That was a problem for another day. Tonight's objective was reconnaissance and digital mapping. Later, in a safe house apartment Maya maintained under a false name, they reviewed the data. The tension between them was a live wire, a mix of old intimacy and new, terrifying stakes. "The cleaner saw you," Maya said, her arms wrapped around herself. "He didn't recognize you, but he noted your interaction with Cray. They'll review footage. Your disguise is good, but not perfect against forensic analysis. We have days, maybe hours, before they start cross-referencing guests. Then, we move tomorrow," Leo said, studying the building schematics on her laptop. "The vault, the palm print. Can we spoof it? It's a vascular scan. Reads the blood flow pattern under the skin. A latex cast won't work. We need," she trailed off, her mind racing. "We need his hand," Leo finished grimly. "Not cut off," she said, a shadow of her old, wry smile touching her lips. "Just scanned. In a situation where he's pressing it against something with enough pressure to register capillary flow. Leo leaned back, staring at the ceiling. He's security conscious. He doesn't shake hands with enthusiasm. He uses hand sanitizer obsessively. His office, swept for bugs twice daily. No unauthorized electronics get within 20 feet. She sighed. There's one place. His private gym. He goes every morning at 5:30 a.m. He uses a particular weight machine, a chest press. The handles are metal. We could overlay a sensor mesh on the handles, keyed to transmit to a receiver. It would capture a perfect pressure-active scan of his palm and fingers. A gym, Leo repeated. It was a public space, however exclusive. It had vulnerabilities. Can you get me in? She looked at him, the ghost of their old partnership flickering in her eyes. I can get you on the cleaning staff. The night before, you'll have a 10-minute window to modify the machine. Then, that's our play, he said. The mission was on. The man and the soldier in him were now fully aligned, fighting for the same objective. Not just to expose a conspiracy, but to reclaim a soul he thought was lost. The battlefield had just shifted from the Dakar Gorge to the streets of D.C., but the stakes had never been higher. The exclusive gym, Olympus, was a temple of polished chrome and dark wood, silent and shadowy at 3 a.m. Dressed in the uniform of the contracted cleaning service, Leo moved with efficient, unobtrusive purpose. His face was partially obscured by a cap and the dim light. Maya's intelligence was precise. The chest press machine was in the far corner, away from the main bank of cameras which were on a rotating loop. He had a 7-minute window, during which this corner was briefly blind. He worked quickly, unpacking the sensor mesh from his cleaning cart. It was a marvel of miniaturization, a transparent, adhesive sheet thinner than a layer of paint. He carefully applied it to the textured metal handles of the machine, smoothing it perfectly so it was invisible to both sight and touch. A tiny transmitter, no larger than a button battery, was embedded in the mesh. He activated it with a twist. A tiny green LED blinked once and died. It was now drawing parasitic power from the gym's own Wi-Fi network, dormant until pressure activated it. He was finishing up, wiping down the machine to remove any fingerprints, when he heard a soft click, a door opening down the hallway leading from the private offices. He froze, melding into the shadows behind a large elliptical trainer. 2 men entered the gym area, their voices low but carrying in the silence. The gala footage is inconclusive, but the pattern is concerning. It was the cleaner from the hotel. His name tag now read him Vance. Cruz is active. His site profile suggests he is incapable of letting go. The DI asset is the trigger. The second man was Alistair Cray, dressed in a tracksuit, sipping from a protein shake. Sparrow has been remarkably productive. Her utility still outweighs the risk. But Cruz is a blunt instrument. If he's poking around, he becomes a liability. A contained one. We have his deployment schedule. The upcoming exercise in the Philippine Sea. Accidents happen in live-fire drills. Leo's blood ran cold. They weren't just going to watch him. They were going to engineer his death in a way that would raise no questions. Cray continued. After the gala, I've moved the primary drive. The Roslyn Vault is now a honeypot. It will contain just enough damning, but falsified, data to lead any unauthorized access down a trail that ends in treason charges. The real ledger is now here. He tapped a small, silver key he wore on a chain around his neck. Private safe in my office. Biometric lock, keyed only to me. Simpler is sometimes safer. Vance nodded. And Sparrow? If Cruz is removed, her compliance will be reassessed. She's a tool. Tools can be replaced if they develop hairline fractures. Cray finished his shake and tossed the bottle into a bin near Leo's hiding place. Ensure the team is ready for the Philippine Sea Op. I want it clean like Berlin. The 2 men walked out, leaving a silence thick with menace. Leo waited a full 5 minutes before exhaling. The mission had just radically changed. The gym scan was now irrelevant. The target was the key around Cray's neck and the safe in his office. And he had a new, more urgent objective, survive his own military's training exercise. He reported to Maya in a burst-coded message via a dead drop. Her response, when they met in a moving metro car at rush hour, was grim. They've accelerated the timeline. Your deployment leaves in 36 hours. The accident will happen within 72 of your arrival. Then, we move on Cray before I deploy, Leo said, his voice low under the rumble of the train. Impossible. His office is a fortress. The only time he's vulnerable is in transit, and his vehicle is armored, his route randomized. What about the safe? You said it's biometric, keyed only to him. Maya's eyes lit with a desperate idea. The key around his neck is one part. The biometric is the other. We need both simultaneously. There is one scenario. He has a personal ritual. Every Thursday night, he visits a private club, the Velvet Temple. It's a den for the powerful. He goes to the steam room. He removes the key and places it in a small locker. For 15 minutes, he is separated from it, and his body is relaxed, his defenses lowered. A steam room, Leo said. Can you get me in? As a guest? No. But as staff, she pulled out her phone, showing him a picture of a delivery uniform. They receive a weekly delivery of exclusive, imported eucalyptus essence for the steam generators. The deliverman has access to the boiler room adjacent to the steam chamber. The locker is in that anteroom. It was a thread, thin and dangerous. I'll need a copy of the key, made in under 15 minutes, and then replaced without him knowing. I can get you a casting kit, the fastest setting polymer. You'll have 5 minutes of actual privacy while he's in the steam. But Leo, if you're caught, I'm already a dead man walking according to their plan, he said, a hard smile on his face. This just makes the fight fair. The following Thursday night, Leo found himself in the bowels of the Velvet Temple, carrying a case of crystal bottles filled with green oil. His face was again altered, this time with a prosthetic nose and bushy eyebrows. The boiler room was hot, filled with the hiss of steam pipes. Through a fogged glass window, he could see the outline of Alistair Cray sitting in the steam room, alone. On a polished bench in the anteroom sat a small, keyed locker. Cray's clothes were hung neatly nearby. Leo saw the silver chain peeking from the breast pocket of his jacket. His heart pounded. He had to wait for the signal. A specific steam valve being turned, a sign Cray was fully immersed and unlikely to exit abruptly. The signal came. Leo moved. With gloved hands, he picked the simple lock on the small locker in seconds. Inside, on a velvet tray, lay the silver key. He took it, his hand steady. He opened the delivery case, which had a false bottom containing the quick-set polymer. He pressed the key into the compound, held his breath for the agonizing 90 seconds it took to set, then carefully extracted it. The copy was pristine. He returned the original to the tray, closed the locker, and re-engaged the lock. He was back in the boiler room, repacking his kit, when the steam room door opened. Cray emerged, towel around his waist, flushed. He went straight to the locker, opened it, and checked the key. He held it up to the light, a habitual gesture of paranoia. Leo watched, frozen, from the shadows of the boiler room doorway. Had he left a micro-scratch? A trace of polymer? Cray seemed satisfied. He slipped the chain over his head, the key settling against his chest. He dressed and left without a backward glance. Leo delivered the remaining essence bottles and left the club. In a prearranged location, he met Maya. He handed her the key copy. One half of the equation, he whispered. She held the key, a symbol of the prison she'd lived in for 5 years. The other half is his handprint. We have the scan data from the gym transmitter. I've fabricated a thin silicone sheath embedded with the replicated vascular pattern. It will work for 1 scan, maybe 2, before the body heat mismatch triggers an alarm. Then, we have everything we need, Leo said, but his eyes were shadowed. Except time. I deploy tomorrow. The trap is set for me there. I have to walk into it. Maya grabbed his arm, her fingers tight. No, we go now. Tonight. We have the key, we have the print. We hit his office tonight. You take the drive, and you disappear. I'll release the data. Leo shook his head, his expression pained but resolved. If I disappear, they'll know you're involved. They'll vanish you, or worse. And The data will be discredited as the ravings of a deserter. No, I have to go. I have to make them think their plan is proceeding. It's the only way to buy you the time and the clean hands you need to expose them. He pulled her into a fierce embrace, a moment of stolen, desperate realness. When you get the drive, you run it through your channels. Burn them to the ground. Don't wait for me. Leo, her voice broke. I've gotten out of tighter spots, he said, forcing a grin that didn't reach his eyes. Just have that door open for me when I come home. He turned and melted into the night, a soldier heading toward a battlefield where the enemy would be wearing the same uniform. Maya was left standing alone, clutching the copied key, the weight of their impossible gamble settling on her shoulders. The final play was set, but the cost was still being written.